What drives a European nation to lock up its citizens at 10 times the rate of its neighbours? Stricter laws? More crime? Or a justice system that's simply more efficient and maybe even fairer? Today, we unveil the ranking of the 10 European countries with the highest incarceration rates. Together, we'll explore the unique reasons why each of these nations made the list, from clan wars over cocaine to criminal hierarchies communicating in secret languages, all the way to the last European country still using the death penalty. Throughout this investigation, we kept returning to one crucial question, and we want you to be the judge. Do these countries imprison more people because there's more crime, or because other nations are too soft on criminals? Welcome to Amazing Europe. Number 10. Lithuania. You might recognise it from Stranger Things, but for nearly 120 years, Lukiškės prison in the heart of Vilnius was one of Lithuania's most notorious penitentiaries. Today, it's been turned into a cultural hub, but its massive, imposing walls remain a perfect symbol of the justice system it once embodied, one of the harshest and most overcrowded in Europe. Imagine a place where the main reason people get sent to prison is also the biggest problem inside those very walls. Lithuania has some of the strictest drug laws in the EU. Even simple possession can land you in a cell, but the real anomaly is what happens after you're locked up. The numbers are staggering. In 2023, of the roughly 600 crimes reported inside Lithuanian prisons, nearly 400 were drug-related. Many inmates are drug addicts who were convicted for theft or fraud committed just to fund their habit. And once inside, they remain trapped in the same vicious cycle. But this needle-sharing culture goes beyond legality. It's a full-blown public health crisis. In 2022, 6.3% of all new HIV cases in Lithuania came from inside the prison system. And for those who manage to get out, they face one of the harshest stigmas in Europe. A recent survey revealed that only 8% of Lithuanians would be willing to work alongside a former inmate, and that number drops to a shocking 3% if the person is also a recovering drug user. This perfect storm of historical, health and social factors all boils down to a single number: 151 prisoners for every 100,000 people. Number 9. Serbia. How do you end up beaten to death in Padinska Skala prison at 74 years old for throwing a firecracker? This isn't a hypothetical question. It's the tragic story of Stanimir, a Serbian pensioner who died in 2024 after days of torture at the hands of his cellmates. His crime? Failing to pay a fine, which had been converted into 30 days in prison. This shocking incident is just the tip of an iceberg whose roots stretch deep into a past that still casts a shadow. For many Serbs, the 1990s mean war, sanctions, and a general criminalization of society that left scars still visible today. That historical legacy directly fuels modern-day crime, shaping who ends up behind bars. The most common charge? Aggravated theft. But here comes the paradox. If you combine drug trafficking cases with simple possession, narcotics become the single leading cause of imprisonment, overtaking all other crimes. In fifth place, illegal possession of weapons and explosives, a chilling echo of the wars that flooded the region with firearms. This toxic mix of violence, predatory crime, and a deepening drug crisis has caused Serbia's prison population to explode. From 2000 to 2010, the incarceration rate nearly doubled, from 82 to 155. Today, that level has remained high, culminating in one striking number: 162 prisoners per 100,000 people. Number 8. Albania. How do you hire a Portuguese hitman to settle a blood feud that began decades ago? Welcome to Albania, a country where the past never dies. This is the story of a recent revenge killing tied to the kanun, an ancient customary code whose most infamous rule is, blood must always be washed with blood. A parallel world that continues to collide with modern justice. This reality is rooted in a unique national history. For 40 years, Albania was a bunker state, sealed off from the world under the paranoid regime of Enver Hoxha. His downfall in 1997 unleashed chaos, and the public looted military arsenals across the country. But what fuels the prison system today? While the shadow of blood feuds lingers, recent data from Albania's official statistics office paints a different picture. The number one reason people go to prison in Albania? Drugs. With over 3,000 cases, drug-related crimes are the primary engine of incarceration, surpassing theft and even domestic violence, which still accounts for nearly 2,000 cases annually. This puts immense pressure on a struggling justice system. Just consider, nearly 60% of Albania's entire prison population is made up of people still awaiting trial. That's one of the highest rates in Europe and a clear sign of a system teetering on collapse. This collision of ancient codes, modern criminality, and institutional overload has sent prison numbers through the roof. In just a decade, the incarceration rate more than doubled, peaking at 205 in 2015. Today, the number stands at 162 prisoners per 100,000 people. Number 7. Montenegro. How does one of Europe's bloodiest clan wars begin? Sometimes all it takes is a missing 200-kilo shipment of cocaine, vanished from an apartment in Valencia, Spain. That's exactly what happened in 2014, sparking a deadly feud between the Kavac and Shkaliari clans, both born out of a once unified, powerful criminal organization based in the Montenegrin city of Kotor. This conflict has left a bloody trail across Europe, over 60 lives lost in just a decade, with car bombings in Podgorica, ambushes in Athens, and even a sniper execution in a prison yard. Mafia and drug-related crimes are undoubtedly major drivers of arrests in Montenegro, but they're not the only ones. Official data from 2024 reveals that the most frequently reported crime in the country is domestic violence, which alone accounts for over 16% of all criminal offences. This social crisis fills cells just as much as drugs and organised crime. Montenegro has tried to respond with firmness, perhaps too much, at least according to the Council of Europe. A recent report by the Council documented serious allegations of abuse in Montenegrin prisons and highlighted a disturbing statistic. Nearly 48% of all inmates are held in pre-trial detention, often confined 23 hours a day. This collision of organised crime, deep-rooted social dysfunction, and a struggling justice system has led to an incarceration surge. In 2010, Montenegro hit a record peak of 235 prisoners per 100,000 inhabitants. Today, that number remains extremely high, 170 prisoners per 100,000 people. Number 6. Latvia. What happens when the state loses control of its own prisons? Welcome to Latvia, where a Soviet-era prison legacy has survived into the present day. It's not just about crumbling buildings. It's about a ruthless, unofficial hierarchy of inmates that rules life behind bars. This is a world with its own laws, its own leaders, known as smotriashi, and even an untouchable caste of outcasts called hierarchies, meaning devils. This unwritten code thrives in the overcrowded Soviet-era dormitories, where privacy is non-existent and violence is a daily norm. Reports describe a system where this criminal elite controls smuggling, fuels violence, and sabotages state rehabilitation programs in order to maintain power. And into this brutal environment are thrown people convicted, mostly for theft and drug-related crimes. But here's the paradox. Even behind bars, the drugs don't stop. One study revealed that nearly 18% of Latvian prisoners use drugs during their sentence. Then there's the issue of deep social fractures. While ethnic Latvians make up 44% of the prison population, ethnic Russians, who are permanent residents of Latvia, account for 42%. Despite the fact that ethnic Russians make up only 25% of Latvia's total population, this shows a significant overrepresentation of Russians in Latvian prisons. This brutal legacy, combined with ethnic tension and obsolete infrastructure, results in one of the highest incarceration rates in Europe, 175 prisoners per 100,000 people. Number 5. Czech Republic. In the heart of Europe lies a country that has earned a dark nickname, the meth capital of Europe. We're talking about the Czech Republic. Here, pervitin, a powerful form of methamphetamine, isn't just a drug. It's practically an artisanal tradition. born during the communist isolation era, when local cooks learned to make it at home, turning the nation into an open-air laboratory. This drug culture is one of the key drivers filling Czech prisons, alongside property crimes, which dominate the national crime stats. But to truly understand the Czech penal system, you need to look at two shocking, unique phenomena. First, there's a deep social fracture. Although the Romani minority makes up only around 2% of the population, several studies suggest they account for over 60% of the prison population. This reflects a complex dynamic of marginalization and, in some cases, self-exclusion, where entire communities, living on society's edge, end up clashing with the state's laws, with devastating consequences. Second, an unprecedented political shock. In 2013, a single act, the controversial amnesty by President Václav Klaus, emptied nearly one-third of the country's prisons overnight, causing incarceration statistics to plummet. This mass release exposed the fragility of the entire system, which, once the amnesty's effects faded, began its slow and relentless climb back up. Today, the Czech Republic has 178 prisoners per 100,000 people, a number that tells the story of a country caught at the crossroads of drug production, unresolved social divisions, and political jolts that have shaped its recent past. Number 4. Hungary. In this country, prisons are so crowded they've reached the highest level in the past 33 years. Hungary is a place where a hardline approach to crime has delivered impressive and, to some, controversial results. Since 2010, the government has introduced strict laws, including zero tolerance for drunk driving and the 3 strikes law, which doubles sentences for repeat violent offenders, even leading to life sentences. This policy has transformed the criminal landscape. Once common crimes like drunk driving have sharply declined, while new priorities have emerged. One surprising trend? Today, one of the leading causes of arrest in Hungary is human trafficking, a grim consequence of the country's location along the Balkan migration route. But the real drama unfolds inside the prison walls. Reports from the Council of Europe cite chronic overcrowding, filthy cells, and allegations of physical abuse by prison staff. In some cases, guards have allegedly ordered inmates to beat up other prisoners. This harsh reality, combined with social divides, including the overrepresentation of the Romani minority, has led to one of the highest incarceration rates in the European Union. Hungary now counts 192 prisoners per 100,000 people. What do you think? Is this high number a sign of serious injustices in Hungary, or simply proof that the country's zero-tolerance policies are more effective than those in other European nations? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Number 3. Poland. What if we told you that an ancient criminal hierarchy still exists in Polish prisons, decades after the fall of communism? This is a system where neutrality is not an option. You're either part of it, or you're a victim. At the top sits an elite of so-called men of honor, ruling with an iron fist under a strict code that promotes internal solidarity and hostility toward authority. Below them is a wide caste of servants, exploited for the most demeaning prison tasks. At the very bottom, the untouchables, pariahs marked for life, subjected to constant abuse and humiliation. And this hierarchy even has its own language. Grypsera, a Polish prison slang, essentially a secret code used by repeat offenders to communicate without being understood by guards. But what types of crimes most commonly land people behind bars in Poland? Official data from the Polish prison system is clear. The main reason for incarceration is property-related crimes, such as theft, burglary, and armed robbery. Yet the real anomaly appears in the second most common category: traffic offences, especially drunk driving. With nearly 5,400 inmates jailed for road violations, Poland holds a European record. 8.3% of its prison population is locked up for this reason, nearly double the continental average. After the fall of communism, Poland's prison population exploded, peaking in 2006 at 232 inmates per 100,000 people. Today, that figure remains high, 194 prisoners per 100,000 people. Number 2. Moldova. Moldova's story is one of a nation divided. On one side, the official state. On the other, a brutal criminal hierarchy inherited from the Soviet Union, still thriving behind prison walls. The situation echoes that of Poland, another country with a Soviet legacy. But here, the law doesn't always rule. Often, it's the thieves-in-law, known locally as hos-in-ledger, who hold true power. These criminal bosses act as judges and enforcers, overseeing prison order and running parallel systems of extortion, discipline, and rank. At the bottom are the humiliated, prisoners who refuse to bow to the clans and are forced to live in isolation and degradation. And then there's Transnistria, the breakaway region that takes things even further. Here, prisons operate in a legal and humanitarian black hole. Reports of torture, arbitrary detentions, and suspicious deaths of political prisoners paint a terrifying picture, in a place over which the Moldovan government has no real control. This Soviet legacy, combined with endemic corruption and a politically fractured territory, creates unbearable pressure on the justice system. The result? One of the highest incarceration rates in Europe, 255 prisoners per 100,000 people. But if you think this broken system is the peak of degradation, wait until you see what happens when organised crime merges almost entirely with the state, leading us to the final, most disturbing entry on our list. But before we reveal number one and take a quick look at the Transcontinental Countries, we invite you to support our project by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and clicking the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming content. And if you want to see how this ranking would look if we included the USA and Canada, you can check out our channel America vs. Europe because we made a video all about it. Number 1. Belarus. How do people die in the last European country that still uses the death penalty? Not by lethal injection, but with a gunshot to the back of the head carried out in absolute secrecy. The family never receives the body, and the burial site remains a state secret. In Belarus, the death penalty isn't limited to the most heinous murders. It was recently expanded to include high treason. The Belarusian penal system is notorious not only for housing common criminals, but also for a high number of political prisoners, a number that has skyrocketed since the massive protests of 2020. Human rights organisations document inhumane conditions, including torture, denial of medical care, and the use of Article 411 of the Penal Code, which allows the indefinite extension of a prisoner's sentence for so-called disobedience. But the reach of Belarusian justice goes beyond dissent. The country is a major hub for human and arms trafficking, often involving stockpiles from old Soviet arsenals. Corruption and drug-related offences further fill the prisons. One case that sparked public outrage was that of the Mothers 328, a civic movement of mothers whose children, under Article 328 of the Penal Code, received long prison sentences for possessing just a few grams of cannabis with no intent to distribute. Because of all this, many have labelled Belarus as Europe's last dictatorship. But we'd truly love to know, do you agree with that label? And what do you think of the government's hardline stance on drugs? With 345 prisoners per 100,000 people, Belarus ranks number 1 on our list. If that's the ranking we've just seen, this is the updated chart including transcontinental countries. At the top sits Turkey, with a staggering 480 inmates per 100,000 inhabitants. And now, we really want to hear from you. Do these countries have higher incarceration rates because there's more crime, or because other European nations go too easy on criminals with overly soft justice systems? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this topic interests you, we recommend this next video, where we reveal the most dangerous countries in Europe based on real data. You won't believe who's at number 1. That's all for this video. See you next time.